This is SeeUs.TV, featuring interviews with various guests as we discuss interesting topics and upcoming events. And also join us as we visit public and social gatherings throughout the Pacific Northwest when SeeUs.TV is out and about. Welcome to this episode of SeeUs.TV.
Aloha, I'm Gloria with SeeUs.TV, Seattle. And today, we are really excited to have a special guest with us, Zach Steimle.
Thank you.
And he is with Oceana Ukulele.
Yeah.
Oceana Ukulele.
Yeah.
What's up with Oceana Ukulele?
What's up with Oceana Ukuleles? Yeah. Well, just making ukuleles in Kitsap County, just one at a time, carving them out of wood. And
you've got some beautiful things that you brought here.
Yeah.
A lot of ukuleles. So, Zach, tell us a little bit about how you got started. What was your passion with the ukulele, and why did you learn, and who you learned from?
Oh, that's a good question. I was living in South America at the time. This was about 15 years ago, and I went into this fellow's shop, Jesus Ortega. He's a third-generation luthier. A luthier is somebody who builds stringed instruments. I went to his shop and talked to him about building one, and just interested in getting some wood, and he ended up saying, well, why don't you build one with me? He didn't know what an ukulele was, but I scrounged up some plans. He ended up teaching me how to build an ukulele, and it's downhill from there.
Downhill, I think it's uphill.
Yeah.
Because you did some wonderful, you learned, he never knew what an ukulele was.
So South America has this beautiful, rich tradition of small instruments. So he's very familiar with some of the, because a ukulele is not a small guitar. Just like a guitar is not a big ukulele. They're very distinct. There's a lot of different things about an ukulele than a guitar. So he being versed in small instruments was able to figure out very well with the plans I had how to build an ukulele. And one of the things I really appreciate about learning from Jesus was he hasn't modernized, so he's basically using the very same traditions and building techniques that some of the early ukuleles would have been built with. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to kind of bring me in on this really baseline level where it's all hand tools and simple clamps, and it was really interesting to work. When you work with wood, always with a hand tool, you learn so much more about that piece of wood than you would working with a machine.
So that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, 15 years to now.
Yeah.
You have built how many ukuleles?
I'm approximately, counting the time I was working with Jesus, I've built approximately I think I'm on 267 right now.
And they're all custom?
Yeah. No. Many of them are. Most of my instruments have been custom, so somebody will come to me and they'll pick out pieces of wood and they'll ask for special things to make it theirs. And so I work with a lot of custom orders that way. But I also build, like these ones here, are just ones I built out of my love for building instruments. So I do throw a lot of those in the works while I'm working. So
well, tell us about these two.
Okay. These are two very distinct ukuleles. This one here, this is a concert ukulele, and it's a cocobolo, which is a Central American rosewood.
This is
on the
beautiful.
Back and sides. It's a beautiful wood. It has this beautiful, bright
gorgeous
sound. It's a beautiful piece of wood, and I have a redwood on the top of that, a curly redwood, and that has a very nice sound as well.
You noticed you've got some inlaid.
Yeah. So those are not, a lot of people think that they're stickers, but that's actually a really thin layer of shell that's actually, I cut out a little trench for it and set it in all the way around the edge too. And
this is the mother of pearl?
That's, abalone actually.
Abalone.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And you have your fretboard, or
the bridge?
It's called the bridge.
Yes,
This is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Looks, what kind is that? Is it coconut?
Yeah, so this is ebony is a very rare wood, and I've been utilizing this as a coconut. It's actually a chonta. So it's very similar to a coconut palm, except it grows in the Amazon, and it grows really fast, and it has this beautiful dark wood to it. And
I didn't realize that, you know, you can use that for here, and then you've also got a little design up in the top. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so on all my instruments, I carve in this little O shape.
It's a high quality ukulele.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not your average ukulele you would find at ABC.
No, they're very high end, high quality. Each one is made in its. So each piece of wood is so variable that if I am one of the problems you can have with a factory built instrument, even when you have a good factory and they're built well, is each piece of wood is different, and so you have to treat each one differently. How you work it, how thick it ends up, what kind of braces it has on the inside. And I have the privilege of working with each one with the goal of maximizing the sound and playability on each instrument. So it's the wood that gives it the voice, and my job is to give it its maximum voice. And so that's one of the things that I do on each of my instruments.
So this particular wood.
This is koa wood.
This is koa.
Yeah.
So interesting that we have the kamaka koa. And this is aged. Very long.
Yeah.
This is an old ukulele.
Yeah. Yeah, so wood is one of the things about wood is it's not made in a factory. It grows out in nature, and depending on its environment, depending on it, so things like soil, water levels, parasites, wind, all of those things can change an instrument from one to the other. So, there's different grades of wood depending on what island they come from, depending on where that tree grew, and so all woods are very distinct based off of where it grew and how it was harvested and all that.
Well, this is beautiful, and of course you also did this design in here.
Yeah, so that's alternating little pieces of wood that's set into the top of the instrument, and it's
each one of these
are
individual.
Yeah, except I don't put them in like each one with little tweezers. I'll glue a bunch together, then cut them, and then glue them back together and get the little crisscross, and then I have to bend the strip around. So it's a whole process. It's nothing well done comes easy.
No, this is gorgeous. This is really, really pretty.
Yeah. So this piece of wood is actually. I have a friend in Oregon who builds guitars, and this was actually left over from a guitar. He was building a Weizenborn guitar, which is typically played on the lap with a slide. And he was building one, and this was the cutouts from that piece of wood, and I ended up turning it into an ukulele.
This is beautiful. There's a couple of little touches that I've noticed. That it's the fretboard here.
Yeah.
It's indented, and this is beautiful. And I hate playing with any of your instruments you make.
Why's that?
Because I have to have them all. And they all have their own little personalities.
Yeah, they do.
And this one is tell me about this design that you are now working with as well.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the date where Kamaka Ukuleles actually, as far as I understand, started making what they called the Pineapple Ukulele. So as you can see, you can imagine it's more like a pineapple rather than these, which have a deep waist and wider lower and upper bouts. So it's something they started doing. So it has a long tradition in the ukulele world, and it gives it a whole different sound, that fullness. There's less constraining in here where the waist would be. And so it has a bigger, fuller sound. Some people might say it's better. I say it's different. And if you like it, I guess it would be better. I like both.
Many luthers are adding this style into their designs.
Yeah.
And this is really pretty.
Thank you.
So is this typical to have the fretboard indented?
No. So probably about 10 years ago, I met a builder whose name is Pat Huff, and he builds Doc's banjos. And he developed this particular style. It's called a scallop fretboard.
Scallop. Okay.
And so basically what I have here is I'll inlay into the fretboard these little metal bars, and then I recess the wood down, and it allows you to play the instrument and get those sharp, clean notes that you would with a fretted instrument, yet at the same time, it feels super smooth for the player. Tactily, the tactile experience is just so much smoother. It takes less pressure to push it down, and when you do slides, it just accommodates the fingers better. And one of the things I find it does is the way the strings will nestle into the scallop, it bends them a little less than it would with a traditional fret, which sticks up. And so you get a slightly improved intonation.
This is really beautiful.
Yeah. So
was that your own design?
The
scalloped?
No, so well, I do them, but it was inspired by Pat Huff from Doc's Banjos. And so he got me going on that.
You know, as long as I've known you, I never associated this is your sticker and the design. Yeah. I just noticed something.
Yeah.
You have them on all your ukuleles. Is it your signature?
Yeah. That's a very old symbol, and you find it throughout all of Polynesia. You'll find that symbol. Different cultures will have different names for it. I know in New Zealand, they'll be called the symbol for life. You also see it in Celtic symbol. So that swirl is used throughout a lot of art, primitive art and tribal art throughout the world. And it usually has a similar significance, which is life or the ocean, or depending on the actual tribe or culture that it's in, it will have a different meaning. And so I've utilized it that way because I think there's something fascinating about the ukulele, how it's just gone so far, you know, coming from Portugal, being adapted by the Hawaiians into a new instrument. It's not a Portuguese instrument, it's a new instrument that is a Hawaiian instrument, and how it's gone back, and it has so much meaning in so many different cultures. Like right now in Russia, there's this incredible amount of people playing the ukulele in Russia.
Oh, it's all over the world.
Yeah.
It's all over the world. I was Googling to see how many ukulele players.
Oh, yeah.
There's plenty. And so I love your designs. I love what you've done, and that you've put a lot of mastery and a lot of thought behind your uks, including that little design. And I love it because I had just noticed that recently.
Yeah, so you can see how it's in there.
I love it. I love it. So now you've been creating some other uks.
Oh, yeah.
I have just recently seen a 5-string ukulele.
Yes.
And I heard it. And it's just beautiful, Zach. It was just absolutely gorgeous. So tell us about your latest work you're doing.
So I'm working on this one. I'm going to be taking it to the Ukulele Guild of Hawaii's expo that they're having in the Bishop Museum in November 20th through 24th, I believe. So I'm building this rapidly. Hopefully we'll have it done in time. But
how long does it take to make an ukulele?
I give myself about 3 months to build one.
To build one, okay.
Yeah, it can, because there's a lot of time where I'm letting it dry. I glue something, I have to let it dry, and then I sand and let it glue something and let it dry. So there's a lot of, takes about 3 months to build one. Probably about 200 hours, or more or less, depending on the instrument. But
in that time, you're able to you can still go ahead and continue to custom build or
yeah. So like right now, currently I'm working on 3 instruments.
Okay.
So this one's taking the primary role. Here's actually a piece that I'm building. It's a custom order. That's going to a fellow. So I'm working on that one. he'll be disappointed to see I'm not further along at this point.
Well, that's all right, because you will get that done. You have
Yeah.
that other project you're doing for November anyway.
Right.
So share about both of these, because the
So,
woods are so different.
yeah.
They're so beautiful.
So the top on this piece of wood is a really special piece of wood because we're up here in the Pacific Northwest, and this is a western red cedar that grew on the Olympic Peninsula, and it was a windfall. So that in a storm, this tree came down. I work with some people who do cleanups after storms, and I was able to get this piece of cedar, and so it grew up on the Olympic Peninsula near the Hoh rainforest, and I just love the coloration of it. It has such beautiful color and such a wonderful sound. The back and side is, how do you pronounce it again?
The koa?
No, this is not koa. It is lychee.
Lychee.
I call it lychee for
Oh,
some
well,
reason.
we can call it whatever you want
No,
to call it.
we call it what you call it. 'Cause
Well,
you're the
I just
expert.
like the lychee fruit.
Yeah,
And
so it is a fruit
It's
wood.
a fruit. Oh, okay.
And so this is the lychee wood.
Okay.
And it has this beautiful curl. It actually looks it looks very similar to koa.
Yeah.
And so it's a tropical wood, so I'm pairing it up with this northwest wood, and I'm kind of building this special instrument for that, for the exposition, because I want to show off some northwest woods and some unique woods, because there's not a lot of instruments built with the lychee wood. There's a lot built with koa and various other woods, but I wanted to show off that. It has ebony binding, which gives it it's a very stark contrast, and it kind of highlights the wood very nicely. So
Zach, when you're walking around and you see trees, do you just have the sudden urge of going over and then just tapping every single tree to figure out what the sounds?
I'm not a woodman. You know, I'm not out in the woods falling trees, so I don't necessarily look at trees and think, oh, I'd love to cut that down. But when I do, you know, I'll be on a beach, for example, and I'll find a piece of driftwood, and I'll be like, oh, if I could only take that home and cut it up. And like I'm currently working on a piece of wood that actually came out of somebody's wood stack. They were stacking wood, and it was this beautiful piece of maple, and they looked at it and they said, oh, I'm going to take this to Zach. And they brought it over to me, and I just sliced it open, and it's just this gorgeous piece of wood. And so wood comes to me in interesting ways, and I have a real love for wood. It's such a beautiful medium because it's so inconsistent. And it's one of the things I love about it is it's one piece of wood, even if it's western red cedar, is so distinct from another piece of western red cedar. And because I don't live in an area where the lychee wood is abundant, I haven't looked at much. So I was looking at it online the other day, and it was like, there is such a variety of wood within that species. Just like we saw with the koa when we look at this old kamaka and compare it to the koa on here, you know, there's such a dramatic difference between the wood, even though they're both koa. Yeah. And then, you know, so there's so much variety within those species, and it's such a beautiful medium to work with. It's really a privilege as an artist to be able to work with beautiful jewelry grade woods. And
this one you said was a jewelry grade.
Yeah.
And what makes this a jewelry grade?
Well, it's just it has all this beautiful. This one's called tiger myrtle. Myrtles grows in southern Oregon along the coast, but what you get here is these lines, and they just add this dramatic thing. So you can imagine if it's all just one color, it would just be kind of like, oh, nice wood. Yeah. But you get this going on, and all of a sudden it turns. When this is finished, you won't even recognize it. You'll be like, that's the piece you brought in.
Yep. That's the one I want to see when you're all done.
Yeah. So no, you know, because I work with wood all the time, I can look at a piece of wood that's all dirty and unfinished, and I can look at it and see the potential within that piece of wood, and it's fun to take that piece of wood and turn it into something that has the potential to last hundreds and hundreds of years, something that will be cared for and valued by whoever comes across it and has the privilege of playing it. It's such a neat thing to take. Well, for example, that piece of wood that was destined for a fireplace is now going to become an instrument. Yes. And I don't know, to me that's just the most incredible thing. Not because the wood didn't cost me, but because it was this jewelry
Gorgeous.
grade piece of wood
Yeah.
that was going to be in the fireplace. And fortunately, somebody along the way said, no, wait.
Well, it makes me kind of take a look at every time I'm going to set a fire.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Not to.
It's so hard for me to start fires. I'm like, oh, this piece of wood.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just love that you have such a love for the eye of wood. You can see.
Yeah.
And I think I had shared with you that story with other Luthers that do the same thing. And then when they see it, they see something that when we pick up the ukulele, don't realize how much hours it goes into building.
Yeah.
Of good quality.
Yeah.
Yours is up there as a high master level. I've seen you at several other vendors at festivals, and I've seen your displays of uks, and you always have a bunch of different artists, ukulele snobs that take a look at your ukulele and they're playing it and they're just
I think
really
they're connoisseurs.
Okay, connoisseurs. I like that. And
be nice.
I gotta be nice. Well, one of them I have had my eye on was my friend's 5-string
Yes.
ukulele. Now, how did you come up with a 5-string instead of a 6 or an 8?
Yeah, so you might know there's a young lady from Hawaii who kind of she's the one who I first became aware of, who was playing a 5-string, and I became aware of her because a customer came to me and said, "Will you build me a 5-string ukulele?" And I was imagining that it's going to have, after the G, it was going to have another string, and I was like trying to imagine how it would be tuned. And the customer said, "No, it's a high G and a low G paired together, like you'd find on an 8-string ukulele, except all the other strings are single." And so I made it for him. I was had my doubts, and when I strung it up and played it, I instantly fell in love with the sound. It has this richness with that high and low G, and it plays very well with a nice picking style or a strumming. I haven't found a scenario where it doesn't sound great to me, so I really like it. It gives it I personally, when I play the ukulele, I like the low G. It kind of gives me this progression that I'm kind of more familiar with than the reentrant tuning that's typical for the ukulele. So
well, this friend of mine that you sold it to, okay, he came in one day and said, "Oh, you brought it over to him. You delivered it here in the Pacific Ohana Foundation Learning Center."
Yes.
And that day was probably, you brought it anyways, and he, because you brought it over and I am his kumu, I had an opportunity of blessing his ukulele and playing it. He had a hard time taking it back. I just wanted to let you know that. It was like, oh my God, it was just gorgeous. And everybody who heard it, it just had a different voice.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
That was a very special instrument.
And I have not seen too many of them.
Yeah. There's very few 5-strings out there. There's a growing number because of that young lady I can't remember her name.
Okay.
But she's an incredible musician, a very dramatic performer, and she uses usually a 5-string ukulele. So she's really promoting it, and I really appreciate her work as a musician. I wish I could remember her name.
Yeah, but you do a beautiful job. So what's coming up now? That's 15 years ago. You taught someone else. Actually, you had someone else.
Yeah, I was
learn to play, learn to build an ukulele, and you've taken it up here.
Yeah.
And you've been here now. And what's in store for future? Where are you going next? What's going on?
I'm going to be building more instruments, obviously, and I'm actually, here we are talking about ukuleles, but I'm building more guitars now.
Okay.
I'm building a Parlour Guitar, which is it's a smaller bodied guitar, and it's a very comfortable guitar to play, and I like it a lot. Especially after years and years of playing ukuleles, I get a big guitar and I'm like, hey, what's all this? So I've been making, and my Parlour guitars have even though they're small, they have just such a big sound, and because one of the things I learned as an ukulele builder is you have a very small area to make your sound, And so when you work with a small area, it doesn't mean it's not going to be loud or have a big voice or have a quality voice. It just means you have to be more careful what you do as a builder. So anyhow, I'm building more guitars and I'm building more ukuleles, and I'm actually have some really fun ideas for some stuff that hasn't come about. And as you know, sometimes with art, you have an idea, but you have to kind of hold that idea loosely because it kind of becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
So I have some really fun ideas that I'm planning on working with in the future, and I have yet to see how they'll develop. But you know, I'm going to be in Hawaii for the exposition in November, and I'm looking forward to that. And we have.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So the Ukulele Guild of Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Did I get that right? Yeah. No. Ukulele Guild of, yeah. They it's a group that's been dedicated to not just promoting the playing of the ukulele, but also the building and appreciation for the ukulele. And they've been working for over 10 years. They have a longer history than that, but they've been really going hard for the last 10 years. And so they have an exposition. I'm going to go there. I'm going to be one of many builders. There's going to be builders from Japan. There's going to be builders from the United States, obviously, and Hawaii, part of the United States at this point, and South Korea. And it's a really fun. It's almost like a family reunion. Like we get together and have this great time of sharing our passion and our enthusiasm for the instruments. But the Ukulele Guild of Hawaii does a lot to promote the building, playing, and appreciation of this wonderful Hawaiian instrument. And it's such a fun event to go to. And
do you bring your finished products?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to be taking 3 ukuleles with me when I go, and hopefully sell them.
I'm sure you will, because there's enough people who come to something like that.
Yeah.
And they know they're walking away with something unique, and especially your ukuleles are all.
Oh, when I go there, sometimes I feel, when I'm at home by myself, I feel like, oh, I build the best in the world. And I go hang out with the best in the world. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of good builders out there. So in my own little world, I'm the best. But when I go out into the big world, I'm amongst the best. But it's your call who's the best.
Yeah, well, there's so many beautiful ukuleles. And over the years, I've just been really blessed with having some beautiful ukuleles. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that somebody asked me, which one is your favorite? You know, it's hard to call. They're like your children. You have different. You know what I mean? There's some different uniquenesses of each one of them, and it's just like they're beautiful. And you're in the right time to be building and customizing your ooks. Have you ever built the same ook?
No, I've never made a copy per se of one. So they've
all been different.
Each one is definitely just its own thing. I put a lot of I consider each one a piece of art, you know, so it's not like there's a series where you can choose, you know, it's like, oh, you can get one of these and it's just like the other ones. So each one is unique. Even when I build without a customer, I kind of carefully plan it and build what I'd like to see. So there's a lot there.
Well, this has been, I really appreciate you coming and being a part of this. Is there anything you would like, I mean, if someone wants to, they're going to see this, Zach, they're going to see this. This is your business card. Yeah. And your sticker. Mm-hmm. How do they get a hold of you? So the best way to get hold of me is through my website at OceanaUkuleles.com. And that's a really good way to get hold of me through there. And then Zach at Oceana Ukuleles is my email address, and I'm building ukuleles and would love to hear from anybody who would like one. And one of my favorite things about the first time I met you at your shop, do you remember that? We came into your shop and you had quite a few ukuleles, and we just played. Oh, each one trying a different one. Now I remember. I remember we were jamming for like a couple hours. We were just playing music, jamming, and we were only just to visit you for a minute. Yeah, and we ended up playing and just having a lot of fun. You know, the best thing about the ukulele is how inclusive it is. It's a very inclusive instrument, and what I love seeing with the ukulele is the kids that are just taking in
the older kids, the adolescents and young adults and the retired people. I mean, everyone is taken in by the ukulele. And it's and at different levels. It brings so much enthusiasm and joy to music, and I just love. If I was going to give it a German name, I'd call it the folk, the ukulele for the people, the instrument for the people.
Can you, as we wind it down, would you just play one last little something
Okay.
for us, and just to kind of enjoy it, and then so that we can really enjoy this. We are here with Steimle of Oceana Ukuleles. Thank you for joining us on SeeUs.TV Seattle.